Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Let's go Utah Utes edition. Today is a critical day for the season of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Utah Utes are playing in the Pac-12 championship today against the USC Trojans. It's going to be watched by every Ohio State fan in the world, every Ohio State player, every Ohio State coach, praying that the Utah Utes can get the dub, set us to the playoffs. So, got a lot to say about that. A lot of stuff's going on in Vegas with the line. Again, this is kind of what you do when if you don't have it as a knockout and you leave it in the hands of the judges, so to speak, by losing a game. This is where we're at, but it's an exciting place to be. And Utah is a really, really tough team, so we're really excited about that. So, with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys. It's been a tough week, but you guys have been really killing it. Tons of views. Thank you guys so much. If you can leave a like down below, as always, that is a huge help to us. It really supports us. Doesn't take you longer than 1 second to do. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe. We've added a ton of new subscribers this week, so thank you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. As always, comment down below where you guys from. We love that. Shout out where you're from. And how excited would you be to go to the Peach Bowl against the Georgia Bulldogs? I would be over the moon. I think it'd be amazing. We've never been there. Tons of Buckeyes in Atlanta. You have the opportunity to right a lot of wrongs because you get that one man, and you're gonna forget about Michigan for a minute, and then we might even see the Wolverines in the championship. So that would be a hell of a story. It could literally still go down as the greatest Ohio State season of all time. So that being said, going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. It's an exciting weekend. Been a crazy, topsy-turvy college football season, and we need just one more weekend of chaos, and it could get real fun.
Yeah, and you're a big Vegas guy. Nobody knows the Lions, the Sharps more than you do. Talk a little bit about some of the action going in. You've got a fantastic teaser bet that it's funny that's caught fire online where people are teasing the results of the two games that would presumably keep us out of the playoffs. So you can either get the Buckeyes in the playoffs or you can make some money one other way. Talk a little bit about that, and then talk a little bit about the line move that you've seen in Vegas over the two key games that we are paying attention to.
Well, got the big bet this weekend on USC to TCU, kind of an emotional hedge bet. You can get, when I got it, it was 195, so it was like almost 2-1 odds on both of them because both those games are 3-point or less games right now, and so you've got two live dogs in Kansas State and Utah, and we're hoping one of them comes and upsets the team. But if they don't, then I'll win my bet. So everybody's happy. But as you mentioned, the USC game, the lines moved off a key number. 3 is a key number for obvious reasons. Field goal games, it's a lot easier to project those. A lot more games end in field goal games, end of games, overtime, all sorts of different permutations on that. But the lines moved below 3. It's moved below. It's moved to 2.5. Which is really kind of interesting considering that 75% of the public money is on USC. And so what that means is the big bettors are betting on Utah. And what does that mean? Now, I mean, sometimes it means everything, sometimes it means nothing, but it's certainly, we saw Utah up close and personal last year in the Rose Bowl. They're tough. They've beaten USC one time this year. They're certainly not afraid of them. And it's going to be a heck of a game. So, tomorrow night, I know we're all going to be watching that game as intently. And, the one scenario that we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about is what happens if USC and TCU both lose this weekend? You know what that means? Rematch against the Wolverines in the semifinal. And it's not crazy. It's not a crazy idea that could happen. You've got it's not like these teams are 15-point favorites or 25-point. They're both less than 3-point favorites in those games. So I think as it stands right now, we've got about a 66% chance to be in the playoff, and we've probably got a 33% chance of playing Michigan in the first round. So lots of interesting action. It's going to be a great weekend of college football, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it's so weird to say that out loud that we have, a better than 50% chance of making the playoff after, what was an awful weekend last week, losing at home by 3 touchdowns to Michigan. But, again, like when you've got a couple of 3 point or less spreads and that's what you're rooting for, it's about all you can hope for. When you're in this position, at least it's not a miracle. Again, I played in 2007. I was a captain that year. Craziest, maybe the greatest college football season of all time, just because it was down the wire, man. It was like team after team got picked off. Like West Virginia was undefeated. They fall to Pitt. Pitt was like 7-5 or 7-4 or so. They might have been 500. I mean, they were like 5-6 or something crazy. LaShawn McCoy had an incredible game. I think Missouri was undefeated. Oklahoma. And it was funny because like I remember rooting like crazy for Oklahoma, and I was like, hell, Oklahoma's got way better players than Missouri, and they did, and they won. And it's just like I remember like the dominoes just fell, and we ended up as the number 1 seed after losing at home. We lost our last home game too, and then we went up and beat Michigan, and then we just watched for a week, and it was like every little domino fell, and it was pretty amazing because it was. We needed a lot of help to get in there, and we saw our dreams die, quote unquote, on senior day at the shoe, kind of like these guys saw their dreams die. But these guys have a real shot. And I mean, Utah, if there's one team that like for whatever reason I don't want to see, it's those guys because their culture's strong, they're tough as nails. They've beaten Alabama in the South when they had Saban. I think that was I want to say that was in like maybe like 10 or 11 or 9. I mean, in one of those years they beat Bama, and they're not scared of anybody. I mean, they're really good. I think it might have been 08. I think 09 they won it all. Bama did. But Nevada, what else how are you feeling? We're a week out from the game. There's been a lot of stuff going on. Brian Hartline interviewed Cincinnati, ultimately decided to stay. That was a huge story. Recruiting is kind of all over the place right now. We're taking advantage of a key. It's not even a loophole, but it's just a clause where kids that have paid their tuition and they're enrolled and all that, like Ryan Day's knocking out a lot of home visits this week just because we don't have a Big Ten title to get used to. So he went and saw Luke Montgomery. He went and saw the two DBs. What are you? How are you feeling after what we saw at the Horseshoe last Saturday?
Well, I think some interesting things are going to happen with Hartline. Interesting, good from Ohio State's perspective, and I think some things are going to happen interesting with Ryan Day from a responsibilities standpoint going forward. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about these on the message board, but I think there's going to be some significant changes coming, and probably appropriate given the totality of what's been going on with Ohio State and the Ohio State offense. So I'll just leave it at that for now. But I think for our message board viewers, definitely stay tuned because there's going to be some interesting things dropping here in the next 24, 48 hours.
Yeah, and I think it's necessary. I think it's smart. It's right now it's silly season. I mean, these guys are these guys have to kind of keep people in place, keep people happy in coaching. I mean, the coaching carousel is spinning. It doesn't stop spinning until after the Super Bowl. Really, I mean, there's guys that jump after the Super Bowl, and it's you never know who it could be. The staff seems pretty stable. When you whack 40% of it last year, I mean, you can't really fire a bunch of these guys after 1 year unless they're just god awful. Which I don't know if our secondary guys qualify as that. I think that they're good guys. I think that they needed 1 more year, but Tom Herman got the FAU job. Cincinnati's going in a different direction than from Brian Hartline, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how much if there's any other turnover and stuff. I'd love your thoughts. I haven't talked to you since Luke Fickell took the Wisconsin job. What are your thoughts on Luke heading to Wisconsin? He's taking Luke Trussell, who is Jim Trussel's nephew. He's taking him as the defensive coordinator, or he might be at co-DC if they retain Leonard, which I don't know if Jim Leonard's going to stay or not. He might be open to it depending on his options. He's taking Greg Gillum, who's an Ohio State guy. There's a lot of Ohio State guys. Brady Collins was Mickey's right-hand guy as a strength coach. A lot of Ohio State flavor going to Wisconsin. What's your take on Luke going up to be a Badger now?
Well, I think it's an audition for Ohio State. I think Luke obviously wants the Ohio State job, and for him, this is a perfect opportunity to show that he can operate at the next level, and a school that has got a proud tradition in Wisconsin, and if he can keep it going, maybe even expand upon it, then when the Ohio State job becomes available, he becomes an easy choice for Ohio State. And so I think it's a perfect fit. They're both, Wisconsin's tough, Luke's tough, everybody's tough up there. Their AD's tough, um, everybody's tough. So I think it's the right move for Luke. What did not surprise me when they went that way, I didn't think they'd stay in house with Leonard. I thought that they would go when you get a chance to get a guy like that with head coaching experience. I think you take it. And no, I'm happy for him. Couldn't happen to a better guy. And we'll see how he does.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Chris McIntosh, who's Wisconsin's athletic director, was a first round pick, offensive tackle, kind of one of the first big time. Him and Aaron Gibson were kind of from that era of the big time offensive tackles from Wisconsin. He's the AD. He's a state championship wrestler. Him and Luke are almost like kindred spirits. They're almost like brothers. Like if you look at their resumes, they're kind of the same guy. But it's real interesting to see him going up there. And I agree. I think that a lot of the jockeying right now is like if you're Gene Smith and you have a big board of potential, head coaches down the road, you gotta evaluate Luke at Wisconsin. I mean, people throw out Mike Vrabel. I don't think that's realistic. And even I know Brian Hartline eventually, I'm sure, wants to be the head coach, at some point because he's there. But I don't know if you can do the internal hire thing again. I think that it's incredibly difficult to learn how to be a head coach at a place like Ohio State. I think it's much easier to go elsewhere, kind of make mistakes in less of a glaring spotlight, learn some stuff, learn how to run a program, then maybe ascend like Luke did. He went to Cincinnati, had that magnificent year where his team was really, really old and veteran because of the COVID year. They had a ton of fifth year, sixth year, like a really old team, a lot of superstar talent with Sauce Gardner and those types of guys. And then he moves on to Wisconsin after kind of a so-so year at Cincinnati because those guys all went pro and they had a young roster, and you can only keep the magic up at a place like Cincinnati so often. You can sneak up on teams and have that big magical playoff year, but you can't sustain that. At a place like Wisconsin, you can sustain that. You can get guys, you can get the athletes, you can get the the talent there, and when they're good, they are damn good. They're a playoff team, but they haven't really been that in a hot minute. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Luke recruits. It'll be interesting to see how many of the Cincinnati guys follow him there. It'll be interesting to see how much Luke recruits Ohio because I think he's gonna use his relationships because his name is gold in Ohio high school coaches association. I'm sure he'll be speaking at the clinic this year. He's a big time brand in the state of Ohio, and I'm sure he's going to be fishing for some of these big linemen and some of these kids that they could end up going to Wisconsin. Kind of an ancillary note, but would love your thoughts on Tom Herman to Florida Atlantic. It's interesting because I saw that Garrick McGee got fired from there. He got let go. Ed Warner was already the offensive coordinator down there. I'm not sure if Tom will retain him. I would imagine he would because you generally retain a guy or two, and he's known Ed for a long time. Drew Maringer was the OC down there. He went to Oregon. It's kind of weird how we've a bunch of guys that were on that 2012 staff have kind of consecutively been on the FAU staff. What are your thoughts on Tom Herman, the rehabilitation project? And, do you think that he could be on the Lane Kiffin trajectory at some point?
Oh, absolutely. I think he'll win big at FAU. I mean, FAU is a perfect place for him to go. He can get athletes. He can do his thing. His offense is great. Lots of strip clubs down in Florida, so it's like it checks every box for Tom. And
Yeah.
I think I think it's a perfect match. When I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that job was made for Tom Herman. Just like Lane Kiffin. When I saw Lane Kiffin, I'm like, that's perfect. Well, Tom Herman's the next one. So I think it's a great mix, a great match, and I think you'll win big there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, when you're a guy, because Tom, people can say whatever they want about him. He's a charismatic dude. He was a good recruiter at Texas. He pulled Bijan. He had some superstar guys. Like, you get out of South Florida, you get a little bit of grease to you, a little oil to you, and, you can do some work. And it's not a tough conference. You're going to get you don't have to leave a 3-hour radius, so you can get basically every player you need there. So I think it's a good fit. It was kind of weird because he was kind of working as an analyst for CBS, I think, this year, but I never saw him do any games. But all of a sudden, he just magically, people were saying, "What's Tom Herman going to do?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't think he would be a fit with Luke at Wisconsin or somewhere like that." But I was like, he's too talented to not coach again. And out of the blue, he goes right to FAU. So it's interesting. And the thing with the coaching carousel is it never stops spinning. So, we might say, "Oh, we're done and our staff's settled," but somebody goes to the NFL, somebody gets fired. It's unexpected. Kind of like Brian Kelly going to LSU last year. Like nobody saw that coming. Like that's just the nature of the beast. And if someone flames out in the NFL playoffs and an owner makes a brash decision and goes and gets a college guy, like I don't know. I mean, you never really know. And I always in the back of my head, if Ryan Day took off and went to the NFL, it wouldn't surprise me just because he grew up in the NFL with the Eagles, with the 49ers. He, and the one thing is he's an excellent quarterback developer. And the one thing that these owners covet is an excellent quarterback. So, you're going to spend all this money on a young QB and you're going to pay him $50 million a year. You better have a guy that knows how to develop him. That's why, Cliff Kingsbury got fired by his alma mater and he landed on his feet, with the Arizona Cardinals because they took Kyler Murray, who's a spread quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury developed Pat Mahomes and he's a spread guy through and through. And so he's got a head coaching job now. So it's just interesting because, man, these QB whisperers, that is the ticket for eternal coaching, fame, because these owners want these number one overall picks developed. And, you see how powerful the quarterback is in college football. Nevada, talk a little bit about, we pontificate a lot about the ability of a quarterback to be a hybrid where he can take off and run a little bit, and how powerful that's become. Because I just watched Josh Allen tonight, the Bills Patriots game. But just talk a little bit about that. The Kyler Murrays, Jalen Hurts. Why is that the new deal, even in the NFL football now?
Well, it just puts so much stress on the defense, and it's we talked about it ad nauseum. But there was a stat that was put out about the top 20 teams in the country and the rushing TDs by quarterback, and I think the average was about 7 or 8. Some had 4, some had 11, and then there was CJ sitting there with 0. And not only did CJ Stroud have 0 for this year, CJ Stroud had 0 for last year. So in the last 2 full seasons of playing quarterback for a major college team, CJ Stroud had 0 rushing touchdowns, which ranked him 130th out of 130 starting quarterbacks in NCAA football, which is just an amazing statistic when you think about it. I understand sparing the quarterback. I understand not wanting to use him as a battering ram. I understand not wanting to get him hurt. But he literally didn't run for a single touchdown as a starter. He had that one play as a freshman where he came in relief and ran 47 yards. And then when he becomes a starter sophomore, junior years, 0 rushing touchdowns. So I've talked about Ohio State does offense the hardest possible way. We don't get any of the free yards. We don't get any of the easy ones. This is where it comes back to bite you, especially in the red zone, especially in short yardage, when you're not getting anything out of that quarterback position. We're such an outlier. And I hope and am confident that Ryan Day is going to address that in the offseason. I really, really do, because I think it's just such a glaring statistic and something that needs to get fixed at Ohio State, or we're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I just look at the receivers we have, how much help you have to lend in coverage when there's a guy like Marvin Harrison out there. Then you had a guy like Emeka. You got to help these corners in coverage versus a guy like Marvin. So that pulls guys out of the box. It makes you have to play coverage. And there's running lanes, and CJ is just like, no, I'm not going to take the free money. I'm not going to, and it drives me nuts as an offensive lineman just because, my whole goal for a quarterback is be as hard to defend as possible, and you could ask a defensive lineman, because I've asked them, what do they like? Do they like guys that can move, or do they like guys, because sometimes guys that scramble will run into you and you get a sack, where they just run into you and you bear hug them and they fall to the ground. But these guys love when a guy stays in the pocket. They love when a guy, doesn't take off, and they don't have to be disciplined in their rush lanes, and they can do whatever because they know that guy's going to be standing, 5 to 8 yards behind the shotgun stop. But I don't know. I wish that CJ would get it through his head. I mean, obviously we've got one or two games left with him, and he's gonna be off to the NFL. But the thing I worry about with him in the NFL is like, dude, like, what are you gonna do when you're playing for Carolina or the Raiders or whoever, and the left tackle's on IR, and they got a practice squad guy that they signed 2 weeks ago at left tackle, and you're going against Von Miller or you're going against Nick Bosa, like you're gonna have to run. I mean, unless you just want to stand there and get killed, because the offensive lines are nowhere near as good as the offensive line that you had at Ohio State, comparatively speaking. Because Ohio State, we've had really good lines, and talent wise, like the D lines that we see in the Big Ten, just aren't good. Michigan's was good, the rest of them not good. So in the NFL, every team has a good pass rusher. And really good teams have 2 or 3 good pass rushers. So, and the lines they're thinner. There's a lot more injuries. The season's longer. So that'll be interesting to watch as he evolves into being an NFL quarterback. So we're going to head into the Scoop Film Studio, break down some of the stuff from the first drive. Nevada and I were talking about what do we want to break down. And I was like, well, let's keep it positive. Let's go through the first drive because, Nevada, I'm going to throw it to you. But, when you're watching this first drive, you're thinking, oh, we're going to roll these guys. This is exactly what we projected. Media projected, multiple touchdown blowout. We thought that they had a really good offensive plan. We thought they were going to run exotic defenses. It was funny. People were like, I didn't see any of the exotic defenses that you guys were saying they were going to run. I'm like, dude, they ran cover 0 and cover 1 for the entire game. That's as ballsy and as exotic as you could ever get as a defensive coordinator. It's literally, there's nobody behind you. And it's like, but the problem that makes it exotic is if someone misses a tackle, people, they're like, do you want the super aggressive where you might give a big play, or do you want bend but don't break, where they just kind of, move the ball down the field slowly on you? It's like, well, this was the exotic thing. And, when it's ugly, it's ugly. Now, when it's good, it's awesome. We get tackles for losses and short gains. But when you miss, man, it is ugly. But we're starting off on offense. Nevada, watching this first drive, what did you think as you're watching the first, few drives of CJ?
Well, I just thought that I thought we could do anything we wanted against them. I thought we could run, at will. You look back at this play here, it's beautiful orbit action there with Xavier Johnson, kind of getting him around the edge. And boy, this is easy. What's this, 18 yards? He just picks up, and it's just easy. You know how many times we ran this play after this? 0.
0.
The same number as rushing touchdowns for CJ last year. We ran this play. Look at this. He almost houses it. Yeah. I mean, he just this lane opens right up. Boom. And I'm thinking at this point, I mean, he might go. Oh, and yeah. I mean, 18 yards of this drive was just so easy. Everything that we did was just so easy. And I thought offensively, they don't have elite defensive ends, so they're not generating that big pass rush. We've got those holes. We've got the guys on the outside that can do it. We can run against them. We can pass against them. I mean, I thought we could do it all, but like I said, let's not show the whole drive because I don't want to get banged for the copyright. So, like I said, we can show a few plays here, or let's show things.
We'll play this play and we'll cut it off.
Yeah, because it's like I don't want to get
these guys. But again, you get 4x1 here. There's literally no chance that this works. Again, this is part of the reason why our offense is broken. It's because when you run a zone, you're in this little fake and it doesn't hold anybody. Then the backside end this guy just makes the play. Because here you've got 4 guys over 4 guys, and when you do nothing to constrain this guy and he can just come off the edge, the play's dead. So you're going to get 2 yards, and that's it. You have 5 blockers. You've got 6 guys in the box. So again, this is part of when we complain about play call. I mean, CJ. I mean, if CJ is really reading this guy and he's triggering, you should be throwing it. You got 2-on-2 here. You got him out here. If you throw it, I mean, look at it. But instead he go ahead.
No, exactly right. I mean, I look at if he's reading that guy out there, by the fact that also CJ watch what CJ after the ball's hit it off. What does CJ do? He's like I'm faking the throw after I hand the ball off. It's like that's not going to fool anybody. That's not going to fool. Have you move your feet? That might fool somebody. But like, who are you trying to fool here with that throw right now?
Yeah, you're committed, and it's just, yeah, but this is just math. I mean, this is like one of the things where we talk about offense isn't really that hard. It's just math. Here you've got 4-on-4, you've got you got a deep safety who can't do anything, and you see the guy trigger on the snap, but and again, this might not be a read. I don't know why this wouldn't be a read, because obviously, like with a play like this, you have to read this guy or you have no chance. Literally, you have no chance. You've got 5 blockers. They've got 5 guys in the box. They've got this guy here just hanging out. So even at the very best, it's going to go for about 4 yards at the very best. But it's probably not going to go for much more than that. But again, this is why, and again, do I expect a perfect play every time? No. But I mean, this is, if you throw this, I mean, you got a double team block here to here. You get out here, if he just cuts him, I mean, what's this going for, 40 yards? I mean, that's probably Emeka, I bet, because Emeka's the best at these. And I don't know. Like that's kind of the troubling thing as to why we can't get certain things done is because, this should be a read. And I don't think this is a difficult read because this guy's triggering right away. And, when CJ's looking at him, like right here, this guy cannot go that way. He's coming here, so you just pull it and just blast it out there. And it's,
but you know what I'd like to do off that action right there? I'd like to fake the ball inside and then have CJ attack the line, but still retain the passing option. You know what I'm saying? Remember when I think it was like Mississippi or Mississippi State they'd attack the line, or Auburn, and then they throw the ball right as he got to the line. Like if you do that, then that creates so many problems for the defensive back. That guy's got to make about 9 different decisions. I mean, if Emeka just swings out down the sideline and CJ just keeps the ball, starts running towards the line, and then flips it down to Emeka on a wheel route, like how is that not working?
Yeah, I mean, like if Emeka even comes back a little bit deeper, just to make sure that you don't get called for an ineligible man, because then it'd be a lateral. That'd be the perfect way to run. It's basically the triple option.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And again, that would be, if this guy steps up into CJ, then I mean he's totally out of the box. You make it a quick little pass. Again, there's a lot of stuff you can do off a formation like this when you go 4x1, but it's just hard because when that guy triggers, he's unblocked and he's gonna make the play. So you're gonna get 2 yards, and you're basically all you're betting on is that guy's not a good enough player to make the play, which against Rutgers and Indiana and Antarctica Tech and some of these teams we play, he's not a good enough player, but it's Michigan he is. So, you've got a very limited amount you can get out of this, out of that. So, but no, it's all good. Well, you got anything to wrap this thing up? We've hit about 30. So,
well, I just think about the 2007 season when you talked about all the chaos that had to happen. The degree of difficulty of what happened in 2007 compared to asking, a couple of 2.5 point favor underdogs to win tomorrow, or Friday and Saturday rather. What happened in 2007 is exponentially more unlikely. So Ohio State making the playoffs is not a crazy proposition. It's not a long shot proposition. It's frankly, a better than even money type of proposition. And for Ohio State fans, don't give up hope, because I think we're going to be in this. I think we're going to be talking about on Sunday about playoff possibilities, and that could make things really, really interesting around Ohio State land, because that changes a lot of things. That changed a lot of things with the players. That changed a lot of things with opt-out, opt-ins. That changed a lot of things in terms of staffing, and could accelerate some moves as well. So, yeah, stay tuned. The next 48 hours is going to be a very exciting time for Ohio State football.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. I know everyone's going to be tuned in Friday and Saturday, and we're going to be all over it on Buckeye Scoop. We'll have the game for it's going crazy. So, as always, we appreciate you guys. Going to wrap this thing up. If you have not tried out BuckeyeScoop.com, we are going off of our biggest traffic week ever. Sadly, that happens after big losses sometimes, but tons of new info. We've got a big nugget coming later today on some of the inside moves inside the Woody Hayes. We're super excited about that. So look for that around maybe 10-ish a.m. We're going to get that up, and then it's just go time. So, you know, we're going to go Utah Utes. If you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like. Those are huge for us. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. Those are huge. They help people find the podcast. We were #1 rated in the area for our podcast, so we appreciate you guys. You guys are tuning in, so thank you so much. Comment down below. What do we need to change at Ohio State? And also shout out where you're from. Appreciate you guys. As always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. This has been the Scoop World Order.